Therefore, there is huge pressure on the irrigation system, on the soil, on the laborers who are picking because they're working in much more difficult conditions. And the fruits themselves, they have to be picked before they're fully ripe because otherwise they become raisins. They dry up on the plant because there's just not enough water. So things are changing and we do need to adapt. Final thing, just in terms of the magnitude of the problem, after dealing with all these complexities of producing the food, 1/3, listen to that number again, 1/3, and I'm sure it's familiar to many of you, 1/3 of the food that is produced globally is wasted or lost. So we struggle to produce food and then so much of it is wasted or lost, 14% of that on the farms themselves. Why? Because logistics is not in place, it's difficult to get them to market, increased heat, they go bad in silos or in transport, or farmers just don't know how to get their products to the market, or people buy too much and keep it in the fridge and throw it out. So again, not sustainable, and I think that's one of the areas that we really need to look at in terms of immediate interventions. Several of the other panelists have referred to how agriculture and food is obviously related to many other areas of sustainable development. It's related to poverty. Most of the world's most vulnerable populations and poor live in rural areas. It's related to climate change and water. It's related to gender. Women are disproportionately impacted by climate change and the worsening conditions for agriculture and food production, women and children. It's related to health, and I described the pressures on the sort of the health system, hunger, youth unemployment. So it's not sustainable. There is also a silver lining, and I always like to also think about solutions and talk about those, not just problems and how big and overwhelming they may be. If we change the way that food is produced, consumed, regulated, financed, commercialized, we could be adding $10 trillion in terms of value. Whereas right now we're losing value in how the world food system is organized. That would mean what? Changing how food is produced, investing, for example, in technology, monitoring the soil and the weather conditions so that you can better target irrigation and treatments for the soil or the plants. Using technology to become more efficient, again, in how we produce and how we distribute the food. R&D, CGIAR and many of those institutes obviously invest constantly in researching and developing more resistant types of crops and rice and so on and so forth. And changing a lot of the incentives, the subsidies from the monolithic large farms, highly dependent on pesticide use linked to massive deforestation, to investing in small farmers. I don't say that because, like I said, I wear the hat of a small farmer myself. But I really do think it's one of the keys. They produce a lot of the food that we use. It will lead to addressing many of the other areas that I've described. People would not have to leave and move from the villages to the cities and corroborate those problems. Invest in monitoring, for example, much better how food is transported and what gets lost. We also bear the responsibility as consumers of choosing better, eating more local food, eating food that is in season then, not demanding that I get my fruits and my corn when it's not in season in my part of the world and it travels from Peru and Chile all the way to India or Europe. So eating the whole farm to fork, farm to table movement, right? Eating more local food, eating food that is produced more sustainably or organic farming, eating food that is in season, avoiding food waste, changing diets, of course, less red meat, and a bit of adapting in terms of how we eat. And finally, education. It's always a big one for me. So teaching children how food is produced, the difficulties in producing food, what is nutritious and what is not, the the problems associated with wasting food, and teaching farmers, right, how to adapt, how to produce more resistant crops, how to get their products to the market, how to monitor weather conditions. So I do believe that a big answer to this also lies not just in changing financing mechanisms and investing in technology and R&D, as I've said, but also in education. And I think in that sense, we all have a role to play. Thank you.